know why he called a halt just then in that narrow, dangerous place, but it seemed that he heard a peculiar sound from behind, and directly after Aroo closed up, to say that the enemy were following us, for he had heard them talking as they came, the smooth walls of the rocks acting as a great speaking tube and bearing the sounds along. "That's bad news, my lad," said the doctor, "but matters might be worse. This is a dangerous place, but it is likely to be far more dangerous for an attacking party than for the defenders. Our guns could keep any number of enemies at a distance, I should say. Better that they should attack us here than out in the open, where we should be easy marks for their arrows." "I do wish they'd leave us alone," said Jack Penny in an ill-used tone. "Nobody said anything to them. Why can't they leave off?" "We'll argue out that point another time, Jack Penny," said the doctor. "Only let's get on now." "Oh, all right, I'm ready," he said, and once more our little party set forward, the doctor and I now taking the extreme rear, with the exception that we let Aroo act as a scout behind, to give warning of their enemy's near approach. And so we went on in the comparative darkness, the only sounds heard being the hissing of the swiftly rushing water as it swept on towards the fall, and the dull deep roar that came booming, now loudly, now faintly, from where the river made its plunge. Twice over we made a halt, and stood with levelled pieces ready to meet an attack, but they only proved to be false alarms, caused by our friends dislodging stones in the path, which fell with a hollow sullen plunge into the rushing water, producing a strange succession of sounds, as of footsteps beating the path behind us, so curiously were these repeated from the smooth face of the rock. "Hiss, hiss, rush, rush," went the water, and when we paused again and again, so utterly solemn and distinct were the sounds made by the waterfall and the river that I fancied that our friend Aroo must have been deceived. "If the savages were pursuing us," I said, "we should have heard them by now." "Don't be too satisfied, my dear boy," said the doctor. "These people have a great deal of the animal in them, and when they have marked down their prey they are not likely to leave the track till the end." I did not like the sound of that word "end." It was ominous, but I held my tongue. "As likely as not," continued the doctor, "the enemy are creeping cautiously along within a couple of 100 yards of where we stand, and—" "I say," cried Jack Penny eagerly, "it's rather cold standing about here. Hadn't we better make haste on?" "Decidedly, Penny," said the doctor. "Forward!" "Yes, let's get forward," I said, and the doctor suddenly clapped his hand over my mouth and whispered, "Hush! Look there!" "I can't see anything," I said, after a long gaze in the direction by which we had come. "Can you see just dimly, close to where that big star makes the blur in the water, a light-coloured stone?" "Yes." "Watch it for a minute." I fixed my eyes upon the dimly seen rock, just where quite a blaze of stars flecked the black water with their reflections, but for a time I saw nothing. I only made my eyes ache, and a strong desire came upon me to blink them very rapidly. Then all at once the stone seemed darker for a moment, and then darker again, as if a cloud had come between the glinting stars and the earth. It was so plain that a couple of the savages had glided by that stone that we felt it would be best to remain where we were for the present, awaiting for the attack that we knew must follow. "We are prepared now," whispered the doctor, "and if we must fight it would be better to fight now than have to turn suddenly and meet an attack on our rear." The result was that we remained watching through the next painful hour, guns and bows ready for the first oncoming of the savages. But with terrible distinctness there was the washing sound of the river hissing past the rocks, and the rising and falling musical roar of the distant cascade, nothing more. Then another hour of silence in that awful chasm passed away, with the expectation of being attacked every moment keeping our nerves upon the stretch. How different it all seemed! What a change from the peaceful life at home! There I had led a happy boyish life, with the black for my companion. Sometimes he would disappear to live amongst his tribe for a few weeks, but he always returned, and just after breakfast there would be his merry black face, eagerly watching for my coming to go with him to catch fish in some fresh creek or waterhole that he had discovered, to hunt out wallabies or some other of the hopping kangaroo family peculiar to the land. Jimmy had always some fresh expedition on the way, upon which we started with boy-like eagerness. But now, all at once, consequent upon my determination, my course of life had been changed, and it seemed that, young as I was, all the work that fell to my hand was man's work. Yesterday I was a boy, now I was a man. That was my rather conceited way of looking upon matters then, and there was some ground for my assumption of manliness. But if excuses be needed let me say in my defence that I was suddenly cast into this career of dangerous adventure, and I was very young. Such some musings as the above, mixed up with recollections of my peaceful bedroom at home, and the gentle face that bent over me to kiss me when I was half asleep, were busy in my brain, when the doctor said softly, "This seems to be such a strong place, Joe, my lad, that I hardly like leaving it. But we must get on. Go forward and start them. Tell them to be as quiet as possible." His words seemed full of relief, and I started round to obey him, glad to have an end to the terrible inaction, when, to my utter astonishment, I found Jack Penny, who was behind me, sitting with his legs dangling over the edge of the rocky shelf, and apparently within an inch or two of the water, while his shoulders were propped against the side of the chasm. His rifle was in his lap, and his chin buried in his breast, fast asleep. "Jack," I whispered softly, utterly astounded that anyone could sleep at a time like that. But he did not hear me. "Jack," I said again, and laid my hand upon his shoulder, but without result. "Jack," I said, giving him an impatient shove. "Get out," he mumbled softly, and Gyp, whom I had not seen before, resented this interference with his master by uttering a low growl. "Down, Gyp," I said. "Here, Jack, wake up," I whispered, and this time I gave him a kick in the leg. "I'll give you such a wunner if you don't be quiet," he growled. "Let me alone, will you?" "Jack, be quiet," I whispered, with my lips to his ear. "The savages are close at hand." "Who cares for the savages?" he grumbled, yawning fearfully. "Oh, I am so sleepy. I say, I wish you'd be quiet." "Wake up," I said, shaking him, and Gyp growled again. "Shan't," very decidedly. "Wake up directly, Jack. Jack Penny, wake up." "Shan't. Get out." "Hist!" whispered the doctor from behind me. "Wake up!"